Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with grilled Greek chicken. That's right, I like my Greek chicken like I like my Greek weddings, big and fat. And of course, I'm referring to the flavor, as the chicken pieces we're using are the same size as usual. But when it comes to how incredibly tasty this is, big and fat is a perfect way to describe the flavors. And the key to this whole operation is the marinade, which is going to be the first step. And basically the strategy here to achieve these big fat flavors is to use a ton of everything. So instead of adding a couple cloves of crushed garlic to this bowl, we'll add like 6 or 7 cloves. And instead of 1 small spoon of dry oregano, we'll add 2 giant spoons. Okay, so a ton of garlic and oregano are the co-stars in this marinade. But we're also going to put in a very generous spoon of hot pepper flakes, as well as a ridiculously large amount of freshly ground black pepper. And that's going to do it for our dry ingredients. But of course, we also need some wet ones. So we'll go ahead and add a whole bunch of freshly squeezed lemon juice. Do not, under any circumstances, use concentrate. I'm going to need you to squeeze, please. I also think we should add a little splash of white distilled vinegar so as to increase the acidity without changing the flavor. And then we'll go ahead and finish up with some extra virgin olive oil, and we will whisk all that together. And as soon as that's mixed up, we are now the proud owners of one of the world's simplest, but most intensely flavored marinades ever invented. So we'll whisk that up and set it aside. And then once that's set, we can move on to prep our chicken. And because I'm going to be using these leg thigh quarters, we want to make a few slashes in these before they hit the marinade, using the old 2 in the thigh, 1 in the leg method, which means we'll cut the thigh twice, through the skin down to the bone about 1 inch apart, as well as do the same thing once through the thickest part of the leg. And what these 3 slashes are going to do is not only let this cook a little quicker and more evenly, but it's also going to allow our marinade to get in there a little better. Okay, so we'll go ahead and prep those leg thigh sections as shown, at which point we're going to salt both sides very generously. And the reason I'm showing you this technique versus just throwing the salt into the marinade is because that kind of throws people off sometimes. Because they're never sure exactly how much to put, as well as marination times can vary. So one technique I like that helps people visualize how much to put is to very generously apply kosher salt to both sides, as we would if we were seasoning these to do without a marinade. And that way, theoretically, when we combine this with the marinade, we have enough salt. Even though I usually sprinkle a little on the skin before I grill it, this is going to get us very, very close. So we'll go ahead and salt that very enthusiastically on both sides before combining it with our marinade. Speaking of which, funny story. I would normally mix this all up in a big bowl and just let it marinate in there in the fridge, tossing it once in a while. But every time I do that, I get emails saying, why don't you use a plastic bag? It's so much easier and you don't have to toss the chicken around. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw those people a bone and use a bag this time. Except that the kitchen gods have a sense of humor. So they made sure my bag sprung a leak, which forced me to get upset and dump it into a bowl like I planned on originally. So basically, the moral of the story is never try anything anyone tells you. Remember that, kids. So anyway, I ended up mixing that very thoroughly in this bowl. And one thing I like to do once I'm confident those are all coated is turn them so the skin side's up and the flesh side is down in that marinade before I refrigerate them, so that more of that meat is sort of sitting in the marinade. And I'm not sure if that makes a difference, but it might, so I do it. And then what we'll do once our chicken is situated and wrapped is let that marinate in the fridge for at least 4 hours or up to overnight. Which personally for me I find a little too long. For me the sweet spot is about 6 to 8 hours, which is how far I let this go. And as you can see I like to lay it down on a paper towel lined sheet pan, just to sort of let it drain for a few minutes. And then even though as we discussed I salted this earlier, I do like to add a little sprinkling to the skin side before heading to the grill. Oh, and I just remembered, don't throw away any excess marinade. Okay, towards the end of grilling we can always use that to baste the chicken if we want. So we'll hang on to that, and assuming our coals are ready, we'll head outside and throw this on a charcoal grill. And we'll go ahead and set those down into some kind of visually pleasing arrangement. And as usual with these grilling videos, I can't really tell you how to do it so much as I can tell you what I did. Alright, there's just so many variables with the different types of grills and different amounts of heat. But I can give you the following advice, and that's not to use too hot of a fire. Alright, it really doesn't do us much good if the outside's beautifully browned and crusty, and yet the inside is still raw because the surface cooked too fast. Okay, don't let all that smoke fool you. I don't really like to use a lot of intense heat here. So instead of grilling chicken, it's almost more like we're roasting the chicken on the grill. So my general strategy is to go about 6 or 7 minutes with the skin side down, and then I'll flip them over and give the other side about the same time. And then from that point on, I like to play with my food. I know that's frowned upon, and you're only supposed to turn stuff once. But with all due respect, that's crazy. So if I want to flip it back over to the skin side again to get a little extra caramelization, what are they going to do about it? I mean, we are, after all, the Charles Dickens of our Greek grilled chickens. And by the way, yes, if you say please, you can have more later. But anyway, like I said, once I have both sides browned, I kind of move the stuff around as I see fit until I've determined it's cooked enough. And of course, we can use internal temperature to check for doneness, but usually I just go by look and feel. So right here, they were getting pretty close, but I decided to give them another couple minutes. Plus, I remembered I saved that extra marinade. So I went ahead and brushed that over, and I let these cook for another 3 or 4 minutes. Which reminds me, you have to do that if you're using marinade that had raw chicken in it. Okay, we would never want to put that on and then serve the chicken immediately. So like I said, I let mine cook for another few minutes, until that brushed on marinade as well as the chicken itself were done, at which point I decided to pull these off. And I'm not going to lie, these probably could have used another 5 minutes or so. But the sun was going down and the light was perfect, so I decided to stop while I was ahead. And that, my friends, if you don't mind me saying myself, is one gorgeous plate of grilled Greek chicken. In fact, it would be impossible for that to look any better. Unless we did this. Served it on some wonderfully colorful diced cucumber, tomato, and onion. And not only is that going to be nice to look at, but it's also going to provide a textural and temperature contrast between the hot smoky chicken and the cool crisp vegetables. Did I just say vegetables? And then from there I went full food stylist, with not only a placemat and a sprig of oregano, but also a clear bowl of lemon wedges. And that's it, our grilled Greek chicken is ready to serve. So I went ahead and plated up, and decided to serve this with a little bit of spicy yogurt, which as you can see I dusted with a little bit of cayenne. At which point it was time to grab a fork and knife and try a piece, or attempt to. As you longtime viewers know, I can't eat on camera, and the knife hit the bone on this first cut. But I quickly panicked, and awkwardly hacked off a little piece, which I tasted without the yogurt to get the full effect, and it was absolutely magnificent. As I mentioned earlier, this is just one of the tastiest, most intensely flavored grilled chicken recipes in existence. And while optional, I really do enjoy that creamy tanginess of the yogurt sauce, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to tell you how to make on the blog. But anyway, that's it. How I do what I'm calling grilled Greek chicken, which is kind of a generic name for something that tastes so special. But anyway, calling it grilled Greek chicken works for me, since everybody knows how delicious Greek food is, and they'll assume the same is going to be the case with this, which it will be. So I really do hope you give this a try soon. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.